It's time for your Star Citizen News Fix. Engines on, let's go. Welcome back again, everyone. This is episode 21 of The Whole Truth, the Star Citizen News Weekly that brings you the facts about the game to help you keep up with all the information that's coming down the pipeline. My name is Wes. Let's do the RSI website recap. The next great starship enters episode 4, and we have our final 15 teams, plus the wild card vote, which turned out to be Infinite Shoe Monkey, which the team said is actually pronounced Shue Monkey. It's spelled X-U-E. They won the wild card vote, and they are now part of the competition, so top 16. We get to see a little montage of all the finalists that will be building the ships for the competition, and then we get to meet Mr. David Hobbins, the concept artist responsible for the newly revealed Mustang ship that will be in direct competition with the Aurora as a starting ship of sorts. David Hobbins has an impressive resume, having worked for some big names like Lucasfilm and a newer project some of you might have heard of by Marvel called Guardians of the Galaxy. That's an impressive resume. So what we're getting to see here is how CIG brings a ship into being from concept all the way up to a finished product as a reference to kind of what's going to be happening in the next great starship in the next phase. This was a very well produced and interesting look into the artist's design process and a great preview to what we're going to be seeing next week when the 16 finalists start to present their ship's concept art. So stay tuned for that. On the heels of that, we received a new concept art gallery revealing 15 pictures of the new Mustang from Consolidated Outland. Here's a little size comparison next to the Aurora. Some of the things that we know about this ship is that it's intended to be a starter ship alongside the Aurora to give folks the option of a little faster ship with a bit more firepower as opposed to the Aurora's more utilitarian functions. Chris Roberts stated that his idea for the ship is that Consolidated Outland, being new to ship manufacturing, won't have all the extras available that RSI has, and so the Mustang will be able to use some standard items from other ship lines like the Aurora small cargo box. It's a great idea to throw in a more combat-oriented starter ship. Chris took the time this week to highlight another crowdfunding game called Kingdom Come Deliverance. This game is also built within CryEngine, and Chris said the things he saw with character creation and outfits were so impressive that he contacted the team to see what they were doing to accomplish it. Star Citizen also needs a detailed character creation system, and that technology is what Chris was looking for. Chris stated that they have worked out a collaboration of sorts and will be sharing information back and forth with the dev team so that both independent developers can benefit for their respective games. That's good news to me. Chris Roberts backed this game on Kickstarter, and after watching the gameplay trailer and the live stream with in-game footage, I'm a believer too. Kingdom Come Deliverance is basically a medieval sim with no magic or dragons, but a compelling RPG simulation with amazing quest systems and combat. I backed the game, and I'm excited about this one as well. Hangar Patch 11 is now available for your Alpha Hangar module. Some notable additions include moving targets added to the firing range. The Freelancer cockpit was updated, and it's a lot better than it was before with a lot more visibility. Blue activation buttons for all manner of things have been added to the Cutlass, which also means Cutlass functionality was added. Also, ammo items now show up in the holotable. There were also various bug fixes and a few other cool little additions, but I'll let you discover those for yourself. We got to look at a lot of Squadron 42 concept art that coincides with what we saw in Wingman's Hangar this week. We'll get into that during the Wingman's Hangar recap, but for now, let's have a quick look at some of the art you can see here on the site. This is the Torpedo Landing Bay. Up next is the Shubin Mining Base. Look at how small those constellations are on there. Yeah, those are constellations sitting on the Shubin Mining Base. Here's a look at the full size of the Shubin Base. And here's the craziest thing I've seen in Star Citizen yet, a mining robot. That thing is like nightmare fuel for me. I've got some video of this thing in motion for you later on in the show. We get 2 new lore updates on the site this week. The first one is called OpNet Merc News and describes itself as a guide for mercenaries in the field. They want to first make it known that they are not affiliated with Crosshair, the official Merc guild on Spectrum. Sabine Mixer-Murillo lays it out for us with the information about new jobs on the job board, and then an interview with Hamza Paul, who started in law enforcement and was then selected for advocacy training, where he worked in a very dangerous system. Hamza now runs a Merc guild that does all kinds of work, including protection services. He talks about what it takes to get a job with them as a mercenary a bit, referring to personality types being the deciding factor, with skills being learned along the way. It's an interesting read, although not my favorite. The second lore update we get is part 4 of Dateline Session. where we follow Ula Yadav, the crime journalist, as she tries to uncover and expose the seedy underbelly of the universe. Without giving too much away, this episode skips us forward in the timeline a bit, and some quite shocking things have occurred. If you want to read one of the best lore series related to Star Citizen, this is the one to read. I could read a novel about this character. It is enthralling. On a side note, lots of people requested the lore series, and it's going to happen. When it's going to happen, I can't tell you yet. I'm working on it. Time is always a factor. In the most recent press roundup, there is at least one notable interview of Chris by Gaming Bolt. The Q&A covers Star Citizen Economy, the best-looking next-gen game per Chris, optimization and customization of ships, and building a space simulator for the ages. Chris talks a bit about the model for the game that involves real-life cash and in-game credits. It's nothing we haven't heard before, and the details are still kind of vague. One thing I noticed that I hadn't heard quantification of before was Chris mentioning that any one of the ships has somewhere between 20 and 40 different components that you can plug in, switch and mix and match to customize your experience with that ship. There's a huge amount of ways beyond just different ship types to customize a ship with different roles. Chris is hoping for people to create counter loadouts as you learn the different ways that people are using their ships. Chris also talks about the Universe server system and then the instance servers. He states that the Universe cluster handles tracking and matchmaking and can be scaled up to millions of players at a time while doing dynamic matchmaking on the fly. The instance servers are the ones that actually talk to the clients of the people playing and take care of the load and space when people see each other or fight each other. The Universe server basically sees the people in the same area and then spins up an instance server to toss them into. The instance server then takes care of that interaction between those people. It's a good read, but most of it we've heard before, just with different wording. We got a big update on subscriber benefits. Now, if you're unsure what that is, it's basically a voluntary subscription service that helps support the game and pays for things like Wingman's Hangar, as well as gets you a lot of inside info and extras before everyone else can see them. This update details what's in store for subscribers over the next year. With year 2 of subscription, all subscribers will start earning in-game display items for their hangars and eventually elsewhere, maybe ships. Every 2 months of subscription, they will add a surprise item to your account. It could be a fish for the tank or a toolbox for your hangar. There's no telling what it could be. I'm hoping for a HAL 9000 myself. I would love to have one of those in my hangar. CIG has made it clear that none of these items will give any gameplay advantages at all and will also be available to discover within the game for other people in the persistent universe. But until then, the only way to get them is to be a subscriber. Updated for 2014 with the $10 Centurion subscription, you get access to Jump Point magazine, which is an excellent development magazine with a lot of awesome work-in-progress artwork, descriptions, and discussions. A new surprise decorative item for your hangar every 2 months. Access to the Vault, which is a huge collection of Star Citizen artwork that would otherwise not be seen, including art that didn't make the final version. It also includes all high-res imagery from the Jump Point magazines. You get a catalog of subscriber merchandise at different times of the year, including prototype ship patches and Vandal size comparison posters, the ability to provide questions for Chris Roberts to answer during 10 for the Chairman, and access to a subscriber-only forum. There are also benefits for having been a subscriber for 12 months, as well as another tier at the $20 mark called Imperator that gets you even more cool stuff. The coolest perk I can see is at the Imperator level after 12 months, you get the ability to create an actual pirate NPC, including backstory, to populate Spider with. You can see the full list of perks by following a link in the info section down below. And the last and latest update on the website is that we hit the $39 million crowdfunding mark. By hitting that goal, we've unlocked a trinary star system consisting of 2 white dwarfs and an active pulsar. The complex gravity of the system leads us to believe that there is a jump point nearby. The first person to make it to UDS 2943-0122 could be you. In this update, we also get some artwork for the UEE Javelin class destroyer. This ship was also designed by David Hobbins, who designed the new Mustang. The goal for this destroyer is to be modular so that it can be adjusted to different roles. This is all still conceptual artwork and subject to change, of course. The big announcement Chris promised us for this next stretch goal turns out to be about procedural generation. The team wants to create atmospheric flight and combat as well as ground exploration, but knows that this isn't possible with the current system at release. Chris states that this is where procedural generation will play a big part. The next stretch goal is to allocate funding to a procedural generation R&D team for future iterations of Star Citizen. Advanced procedural generation is required to create entire planets worth of exploration on such a massive scale. I personally love procedurally generated content when it's done correctly. I think a combination of handcrafted mixed with procedural generation to fill it out is perfect for this game, and the 100 plus star systems at launch that we'll have to explore could greatly benefit from this. Let's do the Wingman's Hangar recap. Oh boy, do we have some fancy new things to show you this week. We got a studio report from Foundry 42 detailing the asteroid belt and mining operations, as well as a huge mining drone and harvesting setup. Check out the size of that thing. It is massive. You can see the chainsaw-like apparatus on the front and the container on the top. The container fits into a sort of railed tube thing on the mining station for collection purposes. In the chat roll after the show, Wingman said they may let people purchase these drones at some point. I really want to go to war with an Idris while flying a mining drone. I will crush it. We also get to see a little bit of ship design with discussion that shows the Javelin destroyer and some shots from the Idris, including the Idris loading bays and turrets. It looks like progress on the Idris is coming along quite nicely. This week's MVP goes out to Ludius for his thread, Subtitled Star Citizen Videos. A bunch of volunteers have been doing subtitles of a lot of Star Citizen official videos, as well as some of the fan-made videos. Ben actually mentioned the whole truth again on Wingman's Hangar in reference to subtitle fan vids, as a couple of our most recent videos have also been subtitled by volunteers. Thank you to the community once again for doing your best to make Star Citizen accessible to everyone. Also, thank you to Ben for the kind words once again. I really appreciate what you guys are working so hard to do with the community and Wingman's Hangar. Keep up the good work. Let's do forum feedback. This week we have Wingman and Rob Irving answering the questions. Say I don't feel like piloting my ship. Can I have the NPC pilot it for me while I go man the turrets? Rob says sure. In the case that you would rather be the gunner than the pilot, then sure. We're not talking about an AI program here. We're talking about a person that sits down in your seat. And that person is an NPC. There's a little confusion here. AI will be able to pilot ships to some extent. We've already had that confirmed. He is talking about an actual NPC that you hire that can sit down in your seat and fly your ship. Can you tell us more about escape pods? Which ships will have them and how will they work? Rob said, it's like an ejection seat in your Hornet. It's a way to get out of your ship. Bigger ships, that's where you need a system like that where you can shoot a seat out of the cockpit. The Aurora, for instance, doesn't have an ejection seat because it is a closed cockpit, so you have to bail out of the hatch. With the DFM right around the corner, I was wondering if aspiring pilots can look forward to a ladder ranking system come release. Rob said yes, there is going to be some preliminary version of that. We're keeping stats as far as doing matchmaking and everything in order to get players together to fight each other. It's probably going to be a pretty rudimentary ladder system at the beginning, but it will continue to grow. I was just wondering if you had any idea if gladiators would be able to fit inside an Idris, considering it is a carrier-based bomber. Rob said the provisional answer is yes, I believe it fits. I think its dimensions are slightly smaller than the Hornet. I have a question regarding the Scythe. How is the asymmetrical shape and offset center of mass compensated for when maneuvering? Rob said, basically some of the engines or maneuvering jets have to work harder than others. It would be configured to handle that. So all of these ships basically have flight computers and they can control that kind of stuff. This stuff happens in real life with jets as well. Will there be a freestyle element to Squadron 42 when you're not running missions? Rob said, as in all of the wing commanders before, you were in the military and you have a job to do. It's not that kind of freestyle sort of thing. Eric said no is the answer to that. There might be some off-world missions, but for the most part, you are in the military. We know the Hornet is the main UEE fighter, but will there be other fighters to choose from in Squadron 42 missions like the old wing commanders? Rob said yes, you've seen several of those ships already, like the Gladiator and the Retaliator. Other fighters as well, and troop transports. Where is the second turret on the Cutlass? Rob said originally the turrets were less defined in terms of the different classes of gun. Really, the second turret on the Cutlass is the tractor beam in the back. For those of us that will get asteroid hangars when the full game comes out, will we be able to pick a lawless or almost lawless system to base our hangar in? Rob said, why yes, we already have identified the systems where the initial asteroid hangars will be. We're not telling you yet, but one of them is a lawless system. For ships where there are non-military versions, will it be evident that you aren't dealing with the military version of the ship when you encounter them? Or will you have to determine that based on the weapon's silhouette, etc.? Rob said there will be some distinction. Certainly when you're identifying groups like the UEE Navy, if the Navy ship comes flying at you, it'll be clear that they're a member of that group. As far as the Xi'an ships like the Scout, the human version will look different. Your ship should be able to identify the differences. Whatever happened to Wingman's weight? Eric said, we sort of went off track after the holidays. We'll probably bring it back, but not as a main portion. We want less fluff, more stuff, and it's gone up a little bit. We'll bring that segment back, but give me a couple of weeks. Let's do 10 for the chairman. This is the section where Chris Roberts himself answers all of these questions. What is your opinion on being able to make real-world money from playing online games? Would you consider such a system for Star Citizen? Chris said, I was thinking about this a lot at the beginning. Right now, we don't have any plans for that. There are some legal issues to deal with. I was concerned that it could potentially bring something into the game that would make it less fun. There were some issues with Diablo and the Real Money Auction House. The Hornet is a purebred dogfighter and a very nice design, but it also has the feeling of being the F-18 of the UEE. Will we see different designs of purebred dogfighters in Star Citizen, or will it remain more along the lines of Hornet versus Vandal fighter? Chris said, we're definitely going to see other dogfighter designs. We're definitely going to have another UEE fighter craft. We're still in the process of planning that out. We'll have another space superiority fighter and maybe another lighter fighter. If I've purchased more than one package, each including a hangar, business and deluxe, and also purchase an asteroid hangar, will that translate into at least 2 hangars when the Persistent Universe comes out? Chris said, we were thinking that you would have one home base hangar, and if you wanted to have forward bases, you would be renting hangar space on a planet. Currently, the design would say no to that. Really, the concept of the hangar is giving you a free place to have all your stuff. It's a difficult question to ask on the asteroid hangar because it is a distinct thing that is in a different location than the other hangars. I haven't made the decision on that, but it is a good point. Will the dogfighting module be released in sections depending on the ships that can be used, and if so, will I have to wait until my ship, the Aurora LN, is playable? Chris said the DFM itself is going to be released in stages. The first stage will be focused on the single-seater ships, so the multi-crewed ships won't be in until a later release. Not all of them are going to make it because there are a huge number of assets to build. As soon as ships are ready, they will be patched in. Most likely the Aurora, the 300i will be ready for dogfighting module version 1. With the organizations being a huge hit with the community, I was wondering if organizations will have the ability to be more than just a shell that encompasses a group of players under the same banner. Will they have the ability to perhaps build a base from which they can produce items such as ammunition, which could mean that a refinery would be needed to extract relevant materials from resources collected from salvage or mining? Chris said yes, that is a goal of organizations. Ultimately, they will be able to tax or tithe their members, have common assets. The organization could buy some ships or some real estate. The organization could control an economic node, a factory producing weapons, or a mining operation mining materials. One of the goals of the organization system is to work together to achieve objectives that a single person could not by themselves. When player organizations enter into direct conflict, how will NPC organizations such as the UEE respond? Will there be a need for a declaration of war such that the UEE recognizes the conflict and does not interfere? Chris said, I don't really think the organizations will have to declare war against each other because they are private corporations or groups of people or guilds, and there's always conflicts between them. Depending on what happens or where the battles happen, the UEE may step in. 2 organizations cannot go toe-to-toe in the orbital space of Earth, whereas you could probably fight in the outer edge of the galaxy and that would be fine. I see that organizations that fight each other will be fighting over resources on the edges of UEE space, with more clandestine activity in UEE space. Is CIG taking steps in Star Citizen to make the game more Oculus Rift compatible than just making the headset work? Chris said, yes, we're going to make the OR work in the game. The head of your avatar will be disconnected from the animations and controlled and tracked by the actual head position of you and the tracking of the OR. Where you are looking around will inform you what you can select. Playing with the OR will be fairly intuitive. If a carrier crashes into a large object, will any ships it carries be thrown about the deck? Especially ships that have been de-anchored and are on the flight deck about to launch. Chris said yes, if a ship that has a crew or unsecured items on board gets a big impact like an explosion outside or someone crashes into it, we will generate an impulse for the unattached items or objects inside. The ultimate goal is, if you get a big hit on a multi-crewed ship, the ship lurches and everybody lurches on the deck. What if someone failed to board my ship? Can I keep theirs as they are all dead trying to steal mine, or will that still be considered as stolen? Chris said, you are fully okay with capturing their ship and it will not count as stolen. I definitely think that should be a penalty if you were trying to raid someone. You could potentially lose your ship. The Retaliator pictures included a concept of the bomb bay loaded with a retractable beam gun. Later on I heard that beam weapons wouldn't be included in the game because you're not a fan of them. Will there be beam weapons in Star Citizen, and if not, why don't you like them? Chris said, I don't dislike beam weapons. We are probably going to have some bigger beam weapons on the big capital ships. We'll have some beam weapons, but they're going to be more slow moving for cutting into a hull. That does it for Tim for the Chairman. Let's check out some other news. Since there's so much info in today's update, we're going to keep the other news portion kind of short. The first little topic I'd like to announce is that in collaboration with Anything FPS, I did a live stream event where we flew the ships around and shot some asteroids. There may have also been some crashing. If you missed the live stream, you can check out the footage by going to a link down below in the info section. Anything FPS is part of our organization, Romanticore, and he does some amazing things with game assets we currently have. Keep an eye out for some more interesting content coming from both of us in the near future. On the official forums, developer Restitutor Orbis responded to a question about stats tracking. He stated that there will be some kind of standard personal stat tracking, and he's pushing for a history system that ties into your reputation. Something where people can look and say, wow, that guy has 2 capital ship kills on his record. It would also allow for different organizations to react more realistically to a player. We'll see if something like this ever makes it into the game. It sounds pretty cool to me. I'm all for having tons of personal stats that other people can check out. Let's do the r/Star Citizen post of the week. This week it goes to Procyon5 for posting instructions about how to see any of the available ships in your own hangar. Procyon5 states that this is not his work, but that credit goes to Final Starfall. Thank you both for getting this out there. I'm sure there are a ton of folks that would like to check out all of the ships in their own hangars. And that brings us to the end of another week of Star Citizen news. We're just that much closer to the dogfighting module release in April. I would encourage everyone to check out our community website over at wearetheromantics.com and join in on our Star Citizen organization and discussions. You can search for our org by typing in Romantic Corp with a P on the end on the main website, and there are also links in the info section. If you're interested in watching me live stream video games, I do it as a career 5 days a week on Twitch TV, Tuesday through Saturday starting at 11 a.m. Central Standard Time or GMT-6. This is all made possible by you being the supportive community that you have been and that you are. And I will see you all again next Monday, and in the immortal words of the T-101, hasta la vista, baby.